everybody doing today? This is Antonio Moore coming to you from Tonetalks. I want to have a discussion about Brett Farve, about Mississippi, about everything we see down there, and just see what everybody thinks about it. You know, when we look at Mississippi, we can't forget that 40% of the state is black. You have Brett Farve down there taking money, basically taking money from black folks. I think for a lot of us that's hard to see because in a lot of ways we feel that things should be fair. America never made things fair. I want to have a discussion about how that shows up. Before I start, I'm in the middle of dental work, so I might have a slight list for the first couple weeks as I'm getting used to a retainer I got to wear for about some time. So Brett Farve hasn't repaid $600,000 of $1.1 million he promised from Mississippi's welfare fund. A year after promising to pay back $1.1 million in welfare money he received, Brett Farve has yet to pay back $600,000 of that money. He's not under a formal agreement to do so. Favre voluntarily repaid the state Mississippi $500,000 in May 2020 after the state auditor's office found that a nonprofit paid the retired NFL quarterback welfare money for speeches he never gave. So you have Brett Farve basically taking this money out of a pot, then also not even doing the speeches. So much of this is so problematic. When I look at the discussion, I can't help but look at it in context of Mississippi having to change their flag, the Confederate flag, and change it to the magnolia flower. I can't look at it, but in the context of what we see with the decadent veil, we understand Mississippi is saying that they're going to change. But how did you do that without reparations? You can't. How do you do that without a transformative project focusing on American descendants of slavery? So you have Brett Farve essentially agreeing to repay this money and then failing to do so. It's not a formal agreement, but at the same time, he should be doing it because he didn't do the work. Let's go all the way back. Going all the way back to an article that came out last year, May of 2020, during the pandemic. Brett Farve received $1.1 million in welfare money for no-show speeches, auditor says. A nonprofit group caught up in an embezzlement scheme in Mississippi used federal welfare money to pay former NFL quarterback Brett Farve $1.1 million for multiple speaking engagements, but Favre did not show up for the events. The state auditor said Monday. Details about payments to Brett Farve are included in an audit of the Mississippi Department of Human Services. State Auditor Shad White said his employees identified $94 million in questionable spending by the agency, including payments for sports activities with no clear connection to helping needy people in one of the poor states of the U.S. The audit was released months after a former Human Services director and 5 other people were indicted on charges of embezzling about $4 million. So this NFL player, who when you look at his salary made over $100 million, has now taken money from black folks in Mississippi, along with white folks. But and then essentially it only came out because of an audit. We see Brett Farve go to these speeches, and we see Brett Farve take his money in and not even attend the speeches. Sounds like fraud to me. I don't understand how he wasn't charged, other than it is Mississippi. So to me, that's, you have on one level, he shouldn't have been paid $1.1 million for a mistake so poor. You have on another level, though, that he should have been charged if he committed fraud. Because if it was in this embezzlement, it was agreed that he wasn't going to show up, but he was going to get paid. This shouldn't be some kind of loose leaf. You pay the money when you go, pay as you go, pay when you feel like it kind of thing. It should be jail with a punishment. You can't have this kind of setup and not have social pressure, social judgment, clear awareness. So much of this is problematic, and so much of this goes back to a history of Mississippi basically gerrymandering, locking black folks out. I think they have one CBC member despite being black, being 40% of the state. I want everybody to also remember, though, it is a small state. I think it's 4 million people. To give that context, I think Georgia is 10 million and California is 40 million. Brett Farve hasn't repaid the $600,000 of the $1.1 million he promised from Mississippi Welfare Fund. A year after promising to pay back $1.1 million in welfare money he received, Brett Farve has yet to pay back $600,000 of that money, and he's not under a formal agreement to do so. Favre voluntarily repaid the state of Mississippi $500,000 in May of 2020. There's no update to provide. Reeves said he made a commitment, which was in our press release a year ago. He made a commitment to continue repaying the remainder after he paid the $500,000 remittance. Reeves stressed that Favre is under no formal agreement. See, he should have been, because when you look back at the actual work, part of the problem is he didn't even do the speeches that I understand. So you have embezzlement, and you have then him getting paid, and then you have him getting paid from a poor state during a pandemic. You see all of these truths come out of the power of whiteness and the power of looking the other way when it comes to white folk. Mississippi's history with black folks in particular is very, very problematic. Why is Mississippi so red when it's so black? This is an article from the Griot. David Love wrote it. Dupree's candidacy represents a paradox in a state with a troubled racist past and whose state flag bears the Confederate insignia. I'm here to talk to you about color, green, Dupree said in a campaign ad. Although the three-term mayor ran a race-neutral campaign focusing on issues such as increasing teacher pay, early childhood education, safer streets, and creating a business-friendly environment that will spur economic development, it is worth noting that Mississippi has the highest percentage of blacks in any state in the union. According to the 2010 census, 37% was black. And the blackest state is also the poorest, ranking among ranking first in the number of people living below the poverty line. We could guess that black people probably are like 60% of that. Mississippi also places dead last in median household income, fourth in the per capita federal aid, and first in the percentage of Medicaid program that is funded by federal matching dollars, 76%. In addition, the state trails the rest of the nation in quality of health care, according to the Commonwealth Fund and America's Health Rankings. Further, Mississippi is the leader in teen pregnancies and gun deaths. Mississippi also suffers from 10% unemployment. I believe that it's probably more like 30 or 40% when you count the underemployed, and also the prisoners, the male prisoners in particular, the black males. Oddly, the blackest, poorest, and most federally dependent state in America is also the most conservative. According to the Gallup poll taken earlier this year, with a 50% conservative self-identification rate, Mississippi is the first state to surpass 50% barrier in the 3 years the poll has been in existence. Racial redistricting brought on by the Voting Rights Act has guaranteed minority representation in the form of majority black districts in Mississippi and elsewhere in the South. However, the unintended result has been racial polarization, with increasingly white conservative districts surrounding those black districts and marginalizing of white moderate candidates in either party. So we see all of this going on. The reality is, and Mississippi poses a major obstacle for any Democratic and black candidate running statewide in the red state. In the 2008 election, McCain won Mississippi at 57%. Recently, they changed the flag from the Confederate flag that we just saw to the new Mississippi flag, welcomed as a step in reconciling states' Confederate past. It may be just Magnolia, but for many Mississippians, it is a symbol of long-awaited reckoning with their state. On Election Day, nearly 73% of state residents voted to change the state flag, which previously had Confederate imagery, to one that is blue, yellow, and red with the state flower. In God We Trust are the words on the flag. So they're trying to change. But keep all the benefits that come off of segregation and slavery. I have family down in Mississippi. And what you tend to see is black folks. I think the Brett Farve thing is interesting because it ties into Decadent Veil and black celebrity along with white celebrity. But it also ties into this whole notion of seeing these athletes independent of their politics. From Brett Farve, Tom Brady, all of them. I think Brady supported Trump. And I think as I'm looking at Brett Farve in particular, you see a bravado, a sense of I don't owe that money. So you have a guy who took in $1.1 million of speaking engagements that in many ways it seems like it's caught up in the embezzlement. We don't know what the allegations are, but then agreed to pay it back. They left it informal, got all the I guess kind of praise or the media attention calmed down because he was gonna pay it, and now a year later, a man who made $100 million or so in his career hasn't paid that money back that he owes. I think there has to be public judgment. I think there has to be criminal charges if deemed necessary. I think we have to start being honest about the truth of everything that's going on around us. You know, black folks in Mississippi were hit hard by coronavirus, particularly deaths. I think they were over half the deaths in Mississippi, despite only being 40% of the people. What that points to is a lack of resource. Now, you can't directly tie it to the embezzled $4 million, but you have to be honest that that's just that much more money that could be in the public fund pot that was taken out, that was given to these people who embezzled money, that was given to Brett Farve for some speaking engagement. I don't know how and why you would pay him that money. And now you have a state that's already poor, not have the ability to provide services to people, but particularly in my interest, the black people that are in that state, my own family that's in that state. I think we have to keep a keen eye on all of this, because if we don't watch this thing, these are the kind of things that lead to these are the kind of things that are built into the system, and the system has to be transformed. Part of this video, I wanted to just bring to you the awareness that this is what we're actually seeing and what's going on. The author said that the human services leaders, particularly Davis, participated in a widespread and pervasive conspiracy to circumvent internal controls. So now the question would be, did Brett Farve know, and what was his awareness? And I don't know if any of that review was done. I just kind of wanted to just discuss this in context of that, in context of how poor Mississippi was, in context of a reparative justice movement, in context of being American descendant of slavery with family from the South and from Mississippi, and get the dialogue going. This is Antonio Moore coming to you from Tonetalks. Thank you so much for tuning in.